Okay, so in this video, I want to do things a little bit differently. There'll be no jump cuts, no edits, no Google Ads knowledge around specific subjects. I want to talk about Google Ads in 2026 and what to expect as advertisers on the system, because I've been doing these videos for a long time, and one of the things I often find is that when I'm talking about the future of Google Ads, I always kind of cover the same kinds of subject. So, for example, if I go back to 2024 and 2023, when I talk about the future of Google Ads, I'm saying things like there's going to be more automation, is there going to be more automated campaign types. We remember many years ago when Performance Max launched, we remember when Demand Gen launched as well, so kind of top-level new campaign types coming out on Google Ads. We remember way back in the day when search terms changed and, exact was no longer exact anymore, when phrase is no longer phrase anymore. These are the kind of things where Google is expanding and kind of maximizing the volume of traffic going through the system and maximizing on automation opportunities by not narrowing keywords down to their semantic exact matches. So that's kind of what's happened over the years. And when I think about the future of Google Ads in 2026 and beyond, there's something that's really noticeable that I don't think anyone else has covered yet. And that is the fact it looks like to me Google are running out of ideas. Now, why do I say this? I say this because, as I said, all of these massive updates like Performance Max launching, continuous changing of match types. So, as I say, exact not being exact, phrase not being phrase, removal of modified broad match, launch of PMax, all of these different things, closing down of smart shopping and moving over to PMax as a focus for shopping campaigns, rolling video campaigns into Demand Gen. So all of these different updates are pretty huge. But what I've noticed is in the last 2 years, and I've waited until this point to mention this, in the last 2 years, there have been no major updates to Google Ads. None. Literally no major updates. So with that in mind, what does this mean? What does that mean for the future of Google Ads? Personally, I think Google has hit a bit of a wall. Now, when I say they've hit a wall, I mean they've got a system that's obviously using AI and machine learning to improve campaigns with bidding. That's working really well. I'm sure they're obviously rolling out updates to that side of Google Ads continuously. And of course, they'll continue to do that. They want to make that more efficient. But then the other side of the coin is, well, they're not really making any new campaign types. They're not really making any kind of new major updates in how match types work. So with none of these major changes happening in the last 2 years, this tells me this is why they've hit the wall. Think about it. When you think about the Google Ads system in the future, as time goes on, and we start looking at things like AI, which is a big part of what Google Ads is focused on, their generative AI in their system is awful. It's really bad. I mean, really awful. You try and write some real content for your ads in Google Ads using their generative AI, it's terrible. You can put the best keywords in, you can put your landing page in, Google will crawl your landing page, it will look at your keywords, and it will basically come to a conclusion that your ad copy should be boring, crappy, and generic, and not going into any of the details or USPs you've mentioned on the page. Sometimes it goes completely outside of the remit of the service you're promoting. It sucks. But yet Google has just overtaken, in terms of their Gemini product, they've just overtaken ChatGPT in popularity of products for AI. So people are using Google AI more increasingly, which means Google's AI should be getting better, but yet that hasn't transitioned into the Google Ads platform. So that tells me there's a bit of an issue here. There's a bit of a disconnect between the AI branch of Google in terms of Gemini and the ads product. Now, don't get me wrong, they've launched Nano Banana, which is their AI image generation tool, into Google Ads, and it can provide really good quality images for different campaign types, for image assets and things like that, and products as well, and it does work really well. The image side looks okay, but the written text side, the kind of basics of Google Ads of writing a text ad, it cannot get it right. So what's going on at Google? What's happening here? What's happened to the continuous push of automation in their ads product? Now, when I think about the next year of Google Ads, I do think they will make one major change. And that major change is going to be, I think they will remove phrase match. Now, I've talked about this before as how phrase match is becoming much more redundant because it operates pretty much the same as broad match does without the additional bidding signals. And that's another one I just mentioned there. Broad match operating as smart match and having enhanced bidding signals. That happened years ago. This was a change that happened many years ago. I think 3 or 4 years ago now. So it's not a new change. This is something that's been in place for a long time. And when that first happened, that is a pretty major change on the Google Ads platform. So that's another one just off the cuff there I'll mention. They're not really innovating anymore. And the reason, I think, is because they can't. They have hit a wall. But going back to what I said about phrase match. Phrase match will probably go because of the reasons I mentioned. It operates like broad match, and it provides the same traffic quality as broad match, but without the enhanced bidding signals that broad match has. So that kind of explains why phrase match will go. I think this will probably be the biggest change Google will make in the next 12 months. They may not even do it, but I can't see any reason why they would not do it. It doesn't make sense to keep that match type for the long term. You can just use exact if you want better traffic quality. And if you want to go and expand, you expand with broad because the signals are better. So to me, phrase doesn't make as much sense as it used to. Now, let's think a little bit here about I suppose, the next step for Google Ads and why they've hit this wall and what happens next. So for me, the biggest thing Google is hinging on is making sure that they can become a platform where all you need is a credit card and a website, and everything in between across their entire ads network, Google will do the rest. The PMax product is meant to achieve that goal. PMax is supposed to be the product that Google uses to ensure that they just need your website URL, maybe some simple information about your business, your credit card, of course, to take payment. But after that point, Google should be able to optimize and do what they want. Generate your campaign goals in terms of driving the right conversion rate, cost per conversion, ROAS on your campaigns, and they do everything. Now, as you know, we live in the real world, and that doesn't happen. PMax cannot do that. In fact, PMax doesn't work for a big chunk of advertisers. It's not a mandatory campaign type. It's something that should be used as a test. I mean, in e-commerce, it can be a mandatory campaign type for large e-commerce businesses. It's kind of a common sense approach to that process. But for lead generation, PMax is most definitely optional. It's so optional. In fact, I've tested PMax in a lot of lead gen businesses, and it's pretty much 50-50 as to whether or not it works. 50-50 because not just, the conversion, because PMax will find conversions. It will go after the lowest hanging fruit, which is, of course, the search network. But also, when it goes above and beyond search anyway, it's picking up loads of spam. There are so many spam leads as a result of PMax. It's unbelievable. Really low quality, bottom of the barrel leads. So in a nutshell, PMax needs improving. The campaign type needs to improve and come a long way before Google can achieve that dream of being a platform where it doesn't need anything from the user and you just plug and play and it works. They're so far away from that right now. I don't see how this could become a reality in the immediate future. Now, a lot of people are fear-mongering over AI. They're thinking, okay, well, the role of a Google Ads specialist or the role of a business running Google Ads with accuracy and confidence, AI will fill in those gaps and do everything for us. And, I use AI in my business, managing Google Ads campaigns, but it's taken a lot of trial and error to get the prompts right to do what I want to do. I now have a bank of reliable prompts I can use, and I may share some of those in future videos, that I can reliably use to build campaigns, to plan ad group segmentation, to write ad copy, all of those different types of tasks, and especially negative keyword research on large accounts where you've got 100,000 search terms within a week or two. That kind of analysis, AI is fantastic at. And even then, you have to prompt it in the right way. Now, the issue we have here is there is still a lot of work, trial and error, and knowledge required to make that work. I have got, I've done a lot of trial and error to get that to work for the campaigns I'm running. And I've got to a position now where they're working well, and the prompts are working in line with what I would expect, as if I was doing the work writing the ad, or if I was doing the manual analysis of a search terms report. So it's getting there. But the fundamental fact is this. Google Ads in the foreseeable will require human intervention, human eyes and knowledge of a business that Google can't see. So when we talk about these automations like PMax and other campaign types and other strategies that focus on automation, yes, you want to use them where you've got the conversion data, but it still needs to be steered. It still needs to be guided, and strategy can only come from the human. And I think because of the lack of updates on Google Ads in the last 2 years, Google is starting to realize this. So, where does that leave us in conclusion? That leaves us thinking that for me, for the first time in a very long time looking at the Google Ads system, I think 2026 will be business as usual, with a couple of very small updates, as I say. Phrase match will go, I've explained the reasons why, but I also think finally, Google will use their Gemini knowledge and skill and implement the quality of Gemini into Google Ads in a much better way to write better ad copy and to produce better content in Google Ads for advertisers. I think that will eventually happen. Now, whether or not the campaign updates and optimization side using AI from Gemini's abilities will be imported into Google Ads is another story. They still struggle very much with optimization and suggestions on campaign performance using AI. And again, they are so far removed from it being effective, it's unbelievable. And a lot of people say AI is growing exponentially, and every year that passes, we're going to see massive improvements over everything. When I think about ChatGPT, from when it first launched to the end of year one of it launching, I think it made a huge leap. It did. A massive leap. I remember generating images with version 1 of ChatGPT. I remember writing prompts and analyzing data, and it literally, from a memory limit perspective, couldn't do it, but also just from an ability perspective, couldn't do it. Then I think from year 1 to year 2, it's improved a lot. However, in the last 12 months, the jump between the first step and the year 1 and the year 2 and 3 isn't that big. It's not that big. There is a ceiling coming. There is a ceiling on AI right now. People talk about AGI as a thing that's going to happen. And I've been doing a lot of reading on this because obviously I work in an industry. Well, pretty much if AGI becomes a thing, every industry is going to be impacted. But I've been doing a lot of reading on AGI and the prospects of it. And first of all, most people can't actually define. When I say most people, I mean the heads of these AI companies can't properly define what AGI actually means. But secondly, the approach we're using for generative AI right now is not going to give us AGI. It's a completely different system, a different way of thinking. It's a different setup to what AGI would even require. Training data and the architecture used for generative AI is not going to give you AGI. So that tells me the ceiling on Google's abilities of growth are the same ceilings that we're seeing in the AI industry. There's already talk about an AI bubble. There's already talk about ChatGPT needing funding from the US government. Sam Altman's got the begging cup out asking Trump for money. We've seen another senior in OpenAI ask this same question in an interview as well, around the government being the lender of last resort for AI companies. So we know they are hitting a ceiling and the funding is going to run dry. Now, that doesn't mean AI isn't going to change the world. The dot-com bubble popped and the internet did change the world. And it continues to change the world. But that means that the crash happened as a result of overzealous, over-optimistic looking at how it's going to do that and how quickly it can do that. AI is the same when it comes to Google Ads or otherwise. And that is why Google has not made major changes to the platform in such a long time, because they are hitting a ceiling. And I think they know it. And I think it's interesting for advertisers at this stage, because what it means is, as I say, I think 2026 will be business as usual. I don't think there's going to be much disruption. I don't think there'll be any new campaign types, really. Maybe some minor tweaks or aggregations of campaign types into one. But nothing major. And this is the reason I made this video on the fly like this. I didn't plan to make this video. Is because I was sitting there thinking, this is odd. I normally have a lot to say when it comes to the end of the year as to what we can expect in Google Ads going forward. And I've made videos like this, as I say, in the past, and there's always been an inflection point around new AI or new automations, and Google's got to push automation and grow automation. To me right now, there's nowhere for automation to go for Google Ads right now. There's nowhere for it to go. They can make marginal improvements on the products, like marginal improvements on PMAX, marginal improvements on the bidding technology behind smart bidding. But ultimately, it's ceiling time. And, most people would ask, Darren, do you think that's a good thing? Because, it means less automation means more control for the human managing ads. I don't see it as a good thing, because ultimately the job is to get campaigns working better. And when Google launches better campaign types and you get better results, that's a good thing. Businesses still have the same challenges. They don't have time or resources to manage these things themselves quite often. So the need for a specialist to keep an eye on things and to understand them and to move things in the right direction and to strategize is still going to be there. I don't fear automation from that regard whatsoever. If your whole job is just pushing the buttons without the strategy, then your days are numbered from that perspective. But if you've got a strategic mindset and you look at the business holistically, that's not going to affect you. So it's interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, by the way. I want to know if anyone else has noticed that the number of updates and major updates to Google Ads has started to slow down, because it has. But let me know, what do you think automation will mean in 2026 and beyond? What do you think the future of Google Ads will be in 2026 and beyond? And thanks for indulging in this random thought I just had. I just put the video on, put the camera on recording, and I thought, let me just get these thoughts down to see what people think. Like this video if you like it, don't forget to subscribe and check out the other content on the channel. Loads of content coming in 2026, and I will see you guys on my next video.